This episode of Faith in Your Recovery has a bit of a twist. Instead of me doing the interview, I am being interviewed by Bishop Julius Tremble of the Indiana Conference of the United Methodist Church, and he's assisted today by Reverend Dr. Brad Miller. This first aired on the Bishop's podcast titled To Be Encouraged. Today is part one of this two-part interview, and next week you'll get part two. We truly believe this keeps with our promise of all things recovery. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to interview one.
We thank you for being our guest here today with us. Randy, welcome to Be Encouraged.
Thank you very much to both of you. I appreciate this opportunity to share what we are, what we're about, and just to spend this time with both of you. Much appreciated.
Bishop, can you give us a welcome and any thoughts you want to have about Randy before we jump into his story here?
Yeah, welcome, Pastor Randy Davis, and thank you. We've talked before. It's been a little while, and I really wanted to connect and get our listeners on the podcast to know that there are people who are actually engaging in our community regarding addiction, and that there is indeed opportunity for people to live a better life and to not to struggle by themselves. I think too often there are too many people in our communities that are feeling that they are facing challenges by themselves. And I think that you will be able to not only share some stories, but also share how this ministry got started and how we still are grieving the loss of so many people too soon due to addiction.
Well, Randy, as a part of what we like to kind of set context a little bit, we'd just like to hear a bit about your faith story, just a touch of it, just a kind of an abridged version of it, how you came to Christ and how that eventually has led you into this mission and ministry that you're involved in right now.
I'll try to keep it short. There's nothing simple about it, though. It's just been an incredible ride up to this point, an incredible relationship, having Christ by my side and getting to walk with him. I was not raised in what we would call a Christian home, but a young lady that I became very attracted to ended up marrying. It'll be 52 years ago, this August 21.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, we're proud of that.
Absolutely.
One Sunday morning, we hadn't been married long. I was out of the military, and she said, I'm going to church this morning. If you want to be with me, why don't you come along? Otherwise, you can stay home. I decided I'd rather be with her than be at home watching TV. I went, and the story goes on from there. I found Christ in the Dunkirk Bethel United Methodist Church, north of Dunkirk, Indiana. And I was a lay leader there, a liturgist, highly involved with the youth, would fill in on occasion. And at the age of 33, I was bivocational in construction. And God spoke to me one night, and I knew the construction had to go and the ministry had to come. I sat in tears for quite some time just trying to sort it out. But I know now I made the right decision. And at our wedding, we had used the scripture. My wife had repeated it, the story of Ruth, whither thou goest, I will go. And she has been dearly alongside all the way. I know there are ministers who don't have that support, and I feel for that, but I could not ask her to be a better minister's wife. The phone would ring at 2 p.m. She'd have my clothes out before I got off the phone, and she'd just always been a vital part of it. Came from a solid Christian family. We've been able to raise our boys that way, and grandchildren. We're thankful to God for the blessings he's provided, the opportunities he's given.
And that's led you eventually to starting and being part of Brianna's Hope. So give us a little context there about how that got started.
Sure. I was in active ministry for, 35, 37 years before I retired as a licensed local pastor most of that time. And upon my retirement, I wondered what I was going to do with life. I don't have woodworking skills. I don't have mechanical skills. My skills are between my nose and my chin. And I can speak out in many different ways, good, bad, or ugly. I didn't say it was always the best, but that's where my skills lie. And through ministry, through a young lady in our area disappearing just 2 years before I retired, I contacted the family, went on board. That was June of 2014. And since that time, we've taken Better Life, Brianna's Hope. We call ourselves a participant-driven a participant-driven Christ-led compassion movement for those battling the battle with substance use disorder. And we've, raised that flag. We've pushed through. We've touched lives, changed lives, saved lives. We've lost lives too, unfortunately. I don't like to mention that, but the fact's the fact. We've done our best. But I realize not every lawyer is going to win every case. Not every doctor is going to win every battle with cancer. But that doesn't stop us. That just increases our resolve to continue to fight for those who want a better life, who want to get out of that time of addiction. So this November we'll be 9 years old, and we're going strong and continuing to celebrate and, following along those words of Christ, just to follow him in it. I love the title of this podcast. My spiritual gift has always been edification or encouragement. So I feel like this is a good fit to be here, and it's a comfortable moment for me.
Quite a story of mission and ministry right there, Bishop. And I know you got some things you really have engaged you about this ministry.
Yeah, Pastor Randy, thank you again for being on the podcast. And I've shared some of the story before in other venues about the Better Life Brianna hopes. Can you tell us Brianna's story if you're willing to share that? I know it's kind of a sad, but there's a redemptive part of her story as well. And what really began this ministry to take hold and then to multiply. It's actually a ministry that's based upon growing, so more people can be reached, more people can be helped to live free lives, free of addiction eventually.
Yes. Actually, on June 16, 2014, Brianna DeBattiste of Dunkirk, Indiana, was reported as missing. And for the next 10 weeks, there was a county-wide, multi-county, statewide, multi-statewide search for her, not knowing how she'd be found. The family made it clear they recognized and realized that she had addiction issues, and that was probably going to lead to her being found, or at least with that knowledge, people would know the kind of places she might be seen. It was 10 weeks later that a body was found laying atop the ground, covered over with brush in an abandoned cemetery in Jay County, Indiana. And at that point, after having walked with her family, they welcomed me on board, gave me carte blanche with anything I ever wanted to say or do with her story, because they didn't want anybody else to face or deal with what they had dealt with. That time of despair, her mom attending church, and the pain on her face and her body and her posture. I mean, I can't imagine her being any different than she was, but that allowed me some very intimate moments with the family. It helped me to understand Brianna's need, and in turn allowed me to come into connection with many folks who struggled with the same issues, be it alcohol or drugs. And from there was a little bit of money left over from a GoFundMe page for her burial expenses. They gave me that $2,500 to start a program like A Better Life, Brianna's Hope. And from there, when we had our first meeting, November 5 of 2014 at the Red Key United Methodist Church. We moved from there to a bank, and then we moved back to the church, and we've just, we've been able to stretch out to like 45 chapters with another new one starting soon, or restart in Huntington, Indiana at the United Methodist Church there. I tout the United Methodist Church because that's my background. But understand, we've got about 17 different denominations involved, either in leadership or location. And yeah, I always tell folks, you can go to a town the size of Indianapolis and you're not going to find many ecumenical groups that are going to house 17 different denominations, and they're getting along. I think it's because we're not worried about theology. We're worried about helping people. I've always been one who believes I want to be the total me that God created me to be, and I want to help you do the same thing. I'm not asking you to be like me or to follow me by any means, but if you can become the you that you were created to be, man, we're going to be a whole lot better community, family, church, world. So that's gotten us to where we are today. As I said, we've got 45, 46 chapters. We're in 4 different states, including Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, and South Carolina. Our South Carolina chapter is real near Myrtle Beach. I'd love to go there a couple, 3 times this winter and give them an update on training. So we'll see if we can get in there and make that happen. But we've sent over 2,000 individuals to treatment. We've been able, as I said earlier, to touch, change, and save lives, to bring healing to hurting hearts, hurting families. We've been able to offer help in many different ways, and we're excited about where we are and what's going on today. And I just wonder what God's going to do next, or how he will direct us.
You're one of the most energetic, enthusiastic leaders that I've met in my 41 years of ministry, Randy, and I get charged and excited just hearing you talk. Can you say a word about Brianna's prayer? It's become a prayer. I think it was a letter maybe she left. And I know it's got widespread circulation, but some people may have never heard that. Maybe give us a little background to that and how that's been utilized, because what she expresses is the heart of a lot of people.
Yes, this is what we call in A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, our foundational document. We require that this be used at every meeting where the group is together. Use the prayer. I go into the jail each Thursday here in our local county. We use the prayer there wherever we're together. This prayer was found by her mother in Brianna's handwriting 3 days before her body was located. So this is Brianna's heart in a nutshell, but man, it's a large nutshell. Here's how it reads. Please, Lord, look after me and my family. Please help me to do the right thing and to show people I'm not a bad person inside or out. And help me, Lord, to get through this disappointment again. And know I make mistakes, but who doesn't? I don't do it to do wrong. I do it because I feel I have no other choice. I want a better life, Lord, I do. Please help me. Do to me as what you feel is best. I surrender to you in Jesus' name. To me, that's a pretty powerful prayer. And it's a blatant reminder of one of the verses I always like to use, which is Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now done, the saving of many lives. So Brianna's prayer has been read over TV, the radio, the internet, every one of our meetings. It's exposed her heart, as you said, and it is the cry of many who are in the center of that struggle with addiction. So that's what her prayer is about.
Well, she mentions in that prayer, Randy, a better life. So can you say a word about the organization of A Better Life? Is that not what we all want? a better life. So say.
Yeah, I believe that with all my heart, and that's where her title came from, was from her words and her hope, Brianna's hope for those words. I see people fight through this battle all the time. We've dealt with thousands. It's just a fact, not trying to be arrogant. There are many groups who deal with folks who are struggling with addiction. But the fact to me, the addiction starts with a choice. I believe a better life starts with a choice too. Sometimes we don't know how to make that choice or where to make that choice. People come to us very raw, very real, kind of in a sloppy state of life, but we respect that and try to help them find their pieces, PIECESs, and their peace, PEACE. And I know for a fact you do that through Christ. We're a Christ-led organization. As I said, we don't force feed that to anyone, but we're going to live our witness before you. We'll use our words. We'll use our style. And we're going to hope, pray you come on board and we can get you in his fold as well.
So tell me, how are the meetings organized? Who leads the group? Obviously, you're not in 46 different places running these chapters, these groups. So what's required? Do you need a location? What do churches do that sponsor a group or host a group? And who keeps that? How do people find out about this?
Well, we're very active on social media, and the word in the addiction community travels as fast as the word in the drug-using community. When they find success, they find help, they find hope, they're ready to bring a friend on board. And that friend may live several miles away. They may want to attend the meeting for a while, but then the drive and the time element gets beyond them. So we probably at least 3, maybe even 4 times a year, have a training that we invite prospective leaders to. We'll explain who we are, what we're about. We'll give them guidelines. We'll provide materials. And that's how we're able to, to spread out as we have, to get as qualified a leadership as we can. Many times it's people who've been there, done that, and have the scars to prove it. I do not come from an addiction background, but I come from a background of compassion, where I've dealt with those family members who have lost a loved one, and it's become very real to me. I know how to hurt with them. I may not know what the true meaning of using that drug or alcohol is, but I know about your heart, and I want you to have peace of mind, peace of heart, relationship with Christ, and be able to move forward from there.
Randy, my understanding is you've got some different rules that maybe other groups have in terms of whether people can participate. Like, for example, what if a person is inebriated and still comes to a meeting? Are they welcome? What if a person is still using and they've been invited by someone who's maybe further along the recovery process? So would they be in the same crowd or the same gathering? How does that, some programs, you can't stay in the transitional housing if you're using, or you can't come to the group session while you're high. And I'm just curious. I'm speaking as a person who doesn't really know.
I understand. We try to somewhat be the church to people. My understanding is church is that door's open to anybody who will walk through it. You come in the best or the worst of sinners. I don't know if there's a difference between the two, okay? Or you come in that, that Christian disciple who has fallen in the last week. The operative word you use there is still. Yeah, regardless of what's going on in your life, we still want you at the meeting because we believe we can have an impact. You're still using. We've had so many people tell us, if you'd have kicked me out of this meeting the first 6 times I came when you knew I was high, I wouldn't be in recovery today. And one of the keys to our meetings has been we offer a meal before most every meeting. That brings folks in. Some of them get the best meal they'll have all week because they're in a situation to where they just can't take proper care of themselves. But then if that meal will keep you coming back, you keep coming back until you find something that'll hold you even stronger. Absolutely.
So what's been are you keeping, everybody talks about metrics and measurements, and how do you know it's making a difference? What's the answer when people ask you, funders that may want to provide funding, say, well, how do you know it's making a difference? Is there a way of tracking that?
It's a very difficult thing to do, to truly track it as you could with some situations, because what is success? What is the measurement in this? Another day being sober is a success as far as I'm concerned for our folks. Another day of being clean or staying out of jail. Is it a failure if you go to jail? How do we look at that? But we've gotten to the point to where we have enough testimonials, enough stories, enough names. We can bring people. I could bring a list onto this show. I could bring a string of people that would far go beyond your abilities to sit there comfortably and listen. We've helped to lead people out of the dark, some others out of the fire. And we just recently, I'm going to go ahead and plug this now. We just recently created this book, Recovery Conversations with Randy Davis. We have a podcast that airs every Friday on all leading podcast stations. It comes on at 6 a.m. on Fridays. We're now into about podcast 93. And again, it's called Faith in Your Recovery. And we have taken some of our most listened to stories from that experience and put them in written form, to where somebody who will never listen to a podcast, somebody who will never attend a meeting, can have almost a manual for success, a manual for hope, be it for yourself, your child who's struggling with addiction, your parent who's going through the battle, a brother or sister, a friend or a family member of any type. And it's got stories in there of a young lady who was a full-blown alcoholic at the age of 14. She's now found sobriety. It's got one of a fella in there from the Decatur area who lost the entirety of his 20s to incarceration. And now he's leading a major recovery group, and he will tell you his favorite 3 words are, God's got this. And he lives that. He has that faith and that belief. So we can give you a string of
And then Bishop, there's also just those anecdotal stories are great, but there is some metrics on the ablbh.org website. 45 chapters, 39 4 in Ohio, 1 in Virginia, South Carolina, over 900 in attendance, 1,750 people assisted in treatment, 80 people employed by recovery organizations, 700 commitments to Christ, 27,000 people served from K through 12. I think those are pretty impressive statistics right there. And we know where it started with one small community in northern Indiana, and it spread pretty far. So I think we've got good anecdotal stories in the book and in the podcast and what we're sharing here today, but also some good metrics as well. We're going to leave it right there for the time being. Hit the pause button here in episode number 69 with Randy Davis about A Better Life, Brianna's Hope. A lot has been said, but, there's a lot more for you to hear. We have a lot more of this interview that Bishop Tremble and I did with Randy Davis. Some fascinating stuff you're going to want to hear, especially pertinent to people who want to engage and start chapters like Brianna's Hope in your local community and in your local church. So that's episode number 70 coming up next time here on To Be Encouraged. You're going to want to check that out and check out all our episodes of the To Be Encouraged podcast with Bishop Julius C. Tremble. Our guest today being Randy Davis really was a powerful exploration of the work that's being done in the addiction community through the organization we talked so much about here today, A Better Life, Brianna's Hope. Let's talk about 3 key takeaways from this episode. Number 1 is the importance of empowering qualified leaders. The work of A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, rests on the shoulders of dedicated leaders who have personal experience with addiction. And by empowering these folks who've gone through their own struggles and triumphs, the organization is able to spread its reach and offer help and hope to those seeking recovery. And this model of leadership reminds us of the power of lived experience that impacts the lives of other people. The second thing, finding peace through Christ. Reverend Randy Davis, our guest on this episode, highlighted the importance of finding peace of mind, heart, and a relationship with Christ in order to move forward in recovery. He emphasized that this peace comes from a personal journey. And even though in his case, he did not come from an addiction background, he showed his compassion and his experience for the family members of Brianna and others who have lost loved ones by sharing the news moving forward. And this is an insight which underscores the holistic approach to recovery that really recognizes this connection between the spiritual and the mental health and the physical presence. The third thing is sharing stories and offering support. The tragic loss of Brianna inspired the creation of A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, and her story continues to be a driving force behind this organization's mission. And the continued sharing of Brianna's story and offering support to individuals struggling with addiction, the other Briannas of the world, that means that A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, has touched, changed, and saved countless lives. And that's the power of storytelling. That's the power of where compassion is made evidence through this, and it's made evident throughout this episode. And it underlines the importance of community and connection in the recovery process. So it's clear that A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, is making a significant impact in the addiction community and the community served by this organization. And the efforts of Reverend Randy Davis and his team, they've been able to provide help and support and resources to individuals seeking a better life. Their Christ-led, participant-driven approach has brought light and hope to countless lives. And there's no doubt that their work will continue to grow and evolve in the years to come. So if you'd like to learn more about Brianna's Hope, A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, and maybe support, I encourage you to check out their website, ablbh.org, or check out Reverend Davis's book, Recovery Conversations with Randy Davis.
As you've just witnessed, this was an episode where the tables were turned and I was the guest. A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, and our podcast, Faith in Your Recovery. I want to thank Bishop Tremble and Reverend Miller for the honor and privilege of being a guest on their podcast, To Be Encouraged. Join us again next week as we release part 2 of this episode, this interview. Between now and then, stay in the battle and trust God. Amen. Till then, goodbye and God bless.